How you guys doing? This is Derek with Dell Woodworking. This video is a little different than our typical videos. This is all based on this furnace right here. And the last week we've been having some issues with it. And I figured I'd go through and just do a video for you guys just explaining some of the stuff with this. If you have an issue with your furnace right now, hopefully this will resolve some of your issues. So this right here is a Goodman Furnace. The model number is the GMEC 960603BNAC. Probably isn't going to help you that much knowing all those numbers. I will put it in the description, and you might have some sort of variation of that. But I'm going to go through the process if your furnace is not running, kind of some of the processes that your furnace goes through when starting up, all the way to when it is firing and heating your house. So let's do that. Another thing we're going to be doing is changing out the burners up here. That's another thing we'll be doing in this video. So over here off the side, I have my on-off switch and my gas is coming in here. This is a propane, but it is also, it can be natural gas as well. So right here, you have what's called a pressure switch, and there's 3 of them in here. Now this is also a power pressure switch that was just changed. It was just changed because this one that back here was not working. That's kind of what started the whole thing here. Now, one of the first issues you might have if yours is starting up and you can hear your inducer fan going, but it's not getting as far as lighting your burners, your issue could lie in these pressure switches. One of the things you can do to test them out is you see this hose right here. You can pull this off, and hopefully you're going to be able to hear this. But you can take this hose and suck and blow in it, and you should hear a click inside this box. So listen for it. That is the pressure switch turning on and off. Now, that could be possibly why something would not be working, is if that isn't opening and closing. I gotta see if I can get that back on there now. It's a little dark back there, but I got it back on. So, and that's the first one. The second and third, there's this hose here that you could undo, blow in, make sure they're both clicking. Now, if they click and you're still having an issue, that does not mean just because they click that those are working. I ran into that because I was testing them all and I heard them all click and I fired it up. My inducer fan, that's your one of your first things that starts is your inducer fan. And then you can hear all the clicks after the inducer fan starts up almost right away. And I heard them all click, so I thought they were working, but it ended up being this pressure switch back in there a little bit. This one right here that was not working, which is why this aftermarket one is in here. Could have done the actual Goodman one, but it would have been more expensive, so just kind of left this one in here free floating. Now another thing I did not point out is down below you have another panel with a clear door on it, and inside that will blink a light, and you can kind of follow that light back to the panel that's covering it that looks like this, but it's a little bit different. But on the back of it, somewhere on it, it's not on this one, it's on the other one, but it'll tell you what the blinking lights mean. If it's 3 blinks, this one means it's a bad pressure switch, something or other. So now, when we start this up, which we're going to do it in a minute, and it should fire up, but let me just talk about it for a minute. You're going to hear a couple things, switch, switch, click, and then the inducer fan's going to run. You'll hear all 3 clicks with this. Everything, if the system's good so far, what's going to happen is there'll be another click, and then up in here, there's going to be a red igniter that glows red. And then it's going to be about 10 to 12 seconds, and then all of a sudden you're going to hear this click. And this is my gas switch. The gas is coming in, and once the system knows that it's all good, it's going to run just fine, it then opens up, and then the gas flows up and through the burners. And then that glowing red thing is what lights the burners. Now, depending on where you get in the system, or where your issue is, that might help you. If that's not glowing red, that means you're having an issue somewhere before that. If that's glowing red, but it's not lighting, your gas switch could be wrong because it could not be getting gas. Now, right now, we replaced the pressure switch, but my burners were not lighting. That was glowing red though. So it got all the way to the end. We couldn't figure out what it was. Now, the issue was actually the burners themselves. Now, that's another thing we're going to be doing is replacing the burners. Let me open one up and show you what they look like. These are the burners in there. They sit like this direction. Now, this is what the front looks like. And you see that there's a very little 1/16 of an inch gap. That is on purpose. All three sit like that, okay? And that gap kind of meets the other one sitting next to it on either side. And that's so that gas can also flow in between the burners, so that when this one way over here, when this lights, it carries over to that burner. Now, these that are in there right now are so corroded that you could barely see in between, and this was all rusted, and it was like really, really corroded. So we cleaned them. It's been working on and off, but what I wanted to do was do a video and show you guys replacing them. Now, we're gonna do that coming up here in a minute. But yeah, so we did clean them. To replace them, all you're gonna do is pop these 4 screws. This thing's gonna kind of like fall out of the way, and then these will literally just sit up in there. You kind of angle them in. So right now, before we replace them, let's start it up. Let's see if it fires. Now, a minute ago, I told you the issue I was having where they were so corroded it wasn't firing, but that was glowing red. So what we did to get it to light is when that was glowing red and I heard this click after 10 seconds, so the order goes, that was glowing red, 10 seconds later, this clicked. I then came in here and I blew. And what that did was it blew the gas around that igniter, and all 3 lit. Now, you might do this and it might light for a second and shut off. Turn the whole system down, turn it back on, try it again. It might take you 2 or 3 times to get it lit where all 3 are going good. You don't need to blow very hard. You could even blow back from like 1.5 feet away. But I would try that. Hopefully your issue doesn't lie in this gas switch, because this is a little bit more of an expensive part to fix. And personally, I wouldn't attempt to mess with the gas because I just wouldn't. So let's fire this thing up and let's show you a full rotation. Let's see if it fires. Okay, let's do it. Click it on. It should be calling for heat. So let's listen to it. You can hear a couple clicking. Inducer fan. I heard all 3 clicks. Now I heard the clicks. Next is that's going to glow red up there. See that glowing red, and then there we go. And now it just opened up for the gas. And there we have it. It didn't fire. I'm gonna shut it off. And now the next time I do it, I'm gonna blow on it and let's see if it fires. Move the view up a little higher so you could see the burners, and hopefully you'll be able to see this a little bit better. Turning it on right now. Let's listen to it go through the system. And once that glows red and I hear this click, I'm gonna then blow from back here. You just saw it not fire, so now you'll see it fire when I blow on it. Glowing red. Wait for this to click right here. And there it is. Oh, I went to blow on it and I didn't even need to. So the system is kind of like it's working sometimes, and sometimes it's not. I'm going to shut that down. What I'm going to do before these get hot is I want to replace these burners. Also, another thing I want to note is I ordered these burners from a website called Supply House, and they have a ton of parts for all of these devices. So I need to take these 4 screws. They are Phillips, but if you take your drill bit and you remove this, it's actually a 1/4 inch drive now. And that's what I'm going to do. That's good. I was hoping that the magnetic tip in there would help me from this happening. Okay. So now you see that all the burners are just kind of dangling in there. So I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt it up and just kind of get it out of there. Now look how corroded that is. There is a little room in between. This is actually after we cleaned them. They were that dirty. Might take a little finagling. Now the old ones are out. Put the new ones back in. You drop right in. There's actually a specific way that they come out, and if you look at the cutout of that area, you'll see that it's square on one side and rounded on the other. So now that those are all hanging there again, just move this back in here, line up these. They really just sit in there. Stuff is you kind of got to get all 3 at the same time, or if you have 4. Okay. And put the screws back in. All right, that's on there, that's secured. So let's fire it up and let's see if it lights with these new burners. Next, this will click, and then it should start. Wow, that happened quick. So just like that, replaced the burners. It was very easy. These burners cost literally 20 bucks a piece on that Supply House website. Those pressure switches can range. You know, I saw some for 18 bucks, some were a little bit more expensive. I guess it really depends on what one you need for your system. The one that we have that worked was, let me see what brand it was. It's called Robert Shaw. Let me look at the info on this. And this is a more generic one. So this is a Robert Shaw model. Oh, you can read it right there. And so that is the pressure switch. Honestly, it might not be a horrible idea to have an extra pressure switch on hand, just in case anything ever happens. I feel like, from what I understand, those pressure switches end up being one of the reasons that these kind of don't work. And also, altogether, to be honest with you, I'm not nearly professional at this at all. I know very little about these systems. I've just learned a lot in the past like 3 days with this whole system going down on me like multiple times. So I've learned a lot in a very short period of time, but I would say this is good knowledge to have, and these aren't all the issues that would go wrong with it. There's also a flame sensor that is, you can actually see this piece right here with the pink part. That goes up, and the flame is actually going through that. That's called the flame sensor, and that can also go faulty. That's also something that you should never touch with your hands. So if you were to ever clean that, you're supposed to clean it a certain way. I would Google it. I don't want to give you the wrong information, but I believe that that's a part that you would never want to touch with your hands. And then also your igniter over here that glows red, that could be at fault. If that's not glowing red, it might not be a pressure switch. It could be that. So altogether, I really hope this helped. Like I said, you can pull these hoses out kind of down lower in the picture, but I showed you earlier to blow and suck on that to make sure that this is clicking. All three are clicking. And then also what you can do is you can take a little pin or something like that, and where this came out of, up front, where it came out of, you can just kind of like move it around inside of there to make sure that that's not plugged, or where this one's coming out of isn't plugged. You can also make sure that that's happening, because if your pressure switch is turning on when you suck on that, then, and it's not turning on when it's hooked into whatever it's hooked into, it could be that that's not drawing it to open and close, and you need to do something for it to do so. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Really hoping this helped somebody. Hopefully this wasn't too jumbled all into one video, but I know I looked for many videos online and I could not find what I was looking for exactly. So hopefully this helped. If it did, please like, subscribe, comment, tell me that it helped. So yeah, please do.